The other day I was doing, I was trying to figure out a little presentation, and I was in my home, and I had some primary source content playing on my computer from some of the Learn to Live curriculum that's in the system here, and show you how to access that here in just a little bit. But my little kindergarten daughter, Madeline, walks past, and she had watched the plane fly into one of the towers on 9/11. And she said to me, Dad, why did that plane just fly into that building? Well, the reason I bring this up with the critical thinking aspect is because Madeline asked me why. And because of that little question, about 15, 20 minutes later, Madeline knew about 9/11. She wasn't even born when it happened. But not only that, she knows there's good people. She knows there's bad people. She knows the bad people will always try to hurt the good people. But most importantly, she knows that good people will always get better at what they do in life and how they come together in life. They learn to live and do things better. And so that was a teaching moment for me as a dad, and I really loved the opportunity to answer the question as to the why did that plane fly into the building and how she understood that. She knows all about it, more than likely, more than some of those students on the college campus that couldn't answer the question, who won the Civil War? So those are the things that we have to do, and we do that with critical thinking. Another personal piece of the critical thinking is right here. So this is kind of elementary, but I'm going to ask you guys just a quick question. When you look at this picture, what do you see? And I do this all over the place, and I with educators, even with students, and they'll tell me things like, "Well, it's a lady in a military outfit." Well, they're right. Okay, what else do you see? Well, the picture's in black and white. There's Air Force pins on the uniform. Well, what does that mean? Well, what might be different today if someone was to take that picture? Okay, well, it'd probably be in color. The uniform would be a little bit different. It might look different. Then three, be curious. What questions do you ask when you see this photo? It's an old photo. She's got Air Force pins, right? So what does that mean? How old is this picture? What do the pins mean? All those different things that the children can look at and start thinking critically and form opinions together. The reason I bring this up is this is a personal story as well. But I'm not sure if any of you have heard of a WASP pilot. But a WASP pilot is a women Air Force Service pilot. And this lady is my wife's grandma, Jean Kohler. The reason why this is so special to me is because when Ed Rickers, our CEO, was looking at opportunities to film and get interviews with World War II WASP pilots, really had a hard time finding anybody. And when I was talking to him, he brought it up, and I said, well, my wife's grandma was a WASP pilot. And he responded immediately to me and asked me if she was alive. And unfortunately, she was not. She had passed away several years prior to this. But what was neat about it was her daughter had taken her years ago and put her in her uniform and filmed her as she sat on the couch. When I told Ed this, he lit up like a Christmas tree star. And the video was a VHS video. It was literally collecting dust. And we digitized it. And this is Jean talking about her experience as a WASP pilot.
I was assigned to go to an airfield in another part of Texas, and I was to tow targets for aerial gunnery practice, student pilots. When I first reported for duty at Owl Field, the commanding officer said, well, we needed help, but we didn't want women. And that made you feel real good, to say the least. To begin with, they'd shoot at your the sack, the bag you were carrying behind you, the target. They approach you alongside, coming towards you, and then swerve across around your tail. Man in the back of your plane would drop the target on the ground, and then they count the marks on it to see how good they were. They started with just tracers, but they eventually went on to real bullets. I was there for several months, from June until November, every day come out and throwing targets around. And we were doing exactly the same thing the men had been doing. And we proved that we could do is just as good a job.
What an awesome story. And imagine this being in the classroom. I get choked up a little bit, but imagine this being in the classroom as the students are watching this. And the likelihood is maybe you yourself didn't even know what a WASP pilot was. I hadn't either until I married my wife. But 25,000 women applied to be WASP pilots during World War II. Over 1,700 made it. Jean was one of them. And when you think about heroes in World War II, think about the women pulling targets with a plane for the men to shoot at for target practice, and eventually turned into live ammunition. Okay, of the 1,700 pilots, well, 38 of them lost their lives, and that was mostly to friendly fire. So when you think about heroes, think about those women that flew the planes with targets behind them. Very informative. Okay, these are the things that we need to teach our children so that they can be responsible students.
Since the year
Our
2001,
children,
thanks
people,
to
citizens.
AYT, which some say stands for Adequate Yearly Pay, administrators and curriculum committees put more focus on reading and math because of mandated state tests. This puts students everywhere on a social studies and science starvation diet for more than 10 years. During this time, students have been passing through grades K through 12 without a solid background in history, government, geography, economics, and more. Ongoing research conducted at Texas A&M University indicates that students with access to Studies Weekly are scoring higher on state ELA exams. This indicates that teaching these subjects effectively with Studies Weekly not only leads to critical thinking skills that results in responsible citizens, but also helps increase their state exam scores now.
So when we have the questions as to what's important, why we put things in the back of the classroom, we've brought them to the front for you again because it's so important for our children to learn how to be responsible citizens. So for the things you worry about as far as being compliant, let us take care of that for you like we have and bring you the content for them to learn how to live, but at the same time, test well. Engage well as students. Again, these are the components, implementation ready resources for teachers, for your students to engage. It's going to lead to that critical thinking and responsible citizenship. Okay, so the print. When you order our print, you get it. We're going to start shipping this at the beginning of each year. You'll receive your content for your children and your teacher supplement for that those units. Okay, and we used to send these out quarterly, but we are starting to do it up front every year because some districts' curriculum maps are a little bit different. But when you give a child a choice between the print and a textbook, we win the battle 100% of the time. And I know that you know this as well. If you look to the left, you see a colorful, engaging format as opposed to the hard, thick textbook that you probably have laying around that's probably 13 or 14 years old anyway. So give them a choice and let them choose. This is a kind of a personal story, but this is my son, Dylan. He's on a 504 plan. He's the reason why I work for Studies Weekly.